Welcome back, everybody, to another outstanding edition of the Square Table Degenerates podcast, live on Friday nights.
Yeah.
9:30, as always. To my right, your left is Pat. Say hi, Pat.
Hi, everybody. Happy Friday to you.
All right. And joining us today is 92.3 The Fan, producer of Baskin and Phelps. She can be heard every day, 10 to 2, I think, something like that. On 92.3 on the radio or the radio.com app and all that stuff is Dan Menningen. How are you today, sir?
You pimp like a champ. Well done.
Thank you.
I like that. I'm well, guys. How you doing?
Very good. Thanks for coming on.
Not too bad, man.
This is awesome. I'm glad I can do it.
Rocking it, and it's not too bad today. It's not like 70 like it was, but it's not like windy as hell like it was last night. And that was for those of you in Cleveland, man, it was pretty wild. It was a pretty wild storm we had.
Oh, it woke me up at 4:00 in the morning between all the rain and the wind whipping all over the place. We had, trees hitting the apartment window. It was unreal. I mean,
yeah,
just the wind and that stuff. And we had a good storm like that in a little bit. So it was kind of nice.
Well, it's got White Chipmunks. Janice is saying hi from Canada. She's channel. Check her out if you get a chance when we're done.
Greetings to Canada.
Yeah, she's in. I think where are you at, Janice? Is it London or Ontario? I know she's in Ontario. I think she's outside of Toronto. I know she's not from Toronto, but she's like outside of it. They're still in super lockdown up there. We just talked about in the pre-show. Everybody's still in lockdown, and they're crazy up there in Canada with this stuff, man. It's ridiculous. They are.
It's kind of odd though because they haven't had the same rollout of the vaccine and that stuff that we've had here, at least to my knowledge. I could be wrong on that one. My Canadian politics are not up to date. Had I known, I would have checked out the Toronto Star and see what I could figure out.
Yeah, she was. I actually heard that's actually true. It's like I think they were booking out to October. She was telling me she can't even get it now. Something like that. Moose Gill's in the house. Hey, Moose Gill. Now, so you were Dan. You were born in '89, somewhere around there. We were talking about before the show. Did you grow up in Fairview Park? Where'd you grow up?
1988. So here's the story. I was technically born in Coventry, Rhode Island.
Okay.
My father was a transportation consultant for Ryder Truck Rental and moved all over the place. And so I was born in Coventry, Rhode Island and moved to this area when I was a kid. I remember none of Rhode Island. I have no recollection whatsoever being there. Moved here when I was younger and have just grown up in Ohio and grown up in Cleveland with two parents who are from Wisconsin.
Okay. Well, the Wisconsin, that's the connection where it explains why they call you a Packer fan, Dan, on the radio.
Exactly. So my folks are all from Wisconsin. My extended family is a good chunk of them is still up in Wisconsin. So that's where the whole Packer fan thing comes from and the whole, Wisconsin sports following and all that kind of stuff. But I've always followed Cleveland. I've always paid attention. I went to bed listening to Tom Hamilton and Joe Tate, like everybody else. I've watched Browns games from there. I've wanted nothing more for than these teams to be successful and to win and to experience what it's like to have a really good team. It's so much freaking fun when you're good, and it's so awful when you're bad. And it's so cool that we're in this position now where you're seeing with the Browns. We're it's so much freaking fun when you're good. It's so much fun in the NFL when you're looking forward to Sundays instead of finding a different way you're going to get kicked in the teeth. It's so much more fun to experience all of this stuff. And so it's why this whole renaissance that's taking place down in Berea is wonderful. And 2016 with the Cavs was wonderful. And hell, you could throw 15, 17, and 18 in there as well. Okay. And even the Indians were the run that they had going for a while. And, now this year, it's baseball. You never know what the hell's going to take place. But that competition is so much more fun than being awful. And everybody's realizing it now, especially with the Browns.
Oh, yeah. Now, did you grew up, how old were you when you first moved to Fairview? You were a baby still, 2, 3, 4, 5? How old?
3, 4, somewhere in that area.
Okay. So did you go to public schools going through all up? Did you go through Fairview High School or did you go to high school?
I was private school kid to kindergarten to 8th and then high school at Fairview High School, public high school.
Okay.
I was the one weirdo that went that route because the whole it's odd how it went. The whole faith thing ended up kind of getting beaten out of me thanks to Catholic school more than helping me along the way.
All right. We both know, trust us.
Yeah, we had 2 Catholic school alums here ourselves.
Kindergarten through 12th for me.
I went
first through 12th.
I went K through 4, and then we moved to Cleveland when I was in 87 when I was 10 years old, and then went 4 through 12 to Catholic school.
Yeah.
Central Catholic, baby.
Oh yeah, trust me, I know what you're talking about there.
So, did you play any sports when you was growing up? What was what was a typical day like when you was running around as a kid out in Fairview?
So my mom would let me play any sport on the planet. She didn't care. The one thing she wouldn't let me do was play football. That was like the one thing. She was like, "You cannot play tackle football. I will not allow it. I don't want you getting hurt. I don't want any life-altering injuries or anything like that." So I played flag football as a kid. I played a ton of baseball. Played baseball in high school. Played basketball. Played was okay at basketball, except I ran into the problem that you rarely hear about in sports, which is that I was the tall kid in grade school, and then everybody else shot up and I stopped growing. So I immediately went from playing center for coaches then looking at me going like, well, you're going to need to learn how to handle it. It's like, well, that's not going to happen. Like I still have a hard time dribbling with my left hand. It's still a mess. And especially coaching youth basketball, it only gets you in more and more trouble when you're going, no, you have to improve with your left hand. And they're going, coach, you only go right. So it's kind of tough to sell that one. But anyway, played golf in high school as well. Just kind of played everything, man. We were all over the place. Played soccer as a kid, and we kind of played everything. You ran with the seasons. I did bowling for a little while. I mean, I was part of ski club for a minute or two. Like, I just had interest in everything, in sports and music and pop culture and that stuff. And so I did a little bit as well with plays and musicals and that stuff, because when I got into Fairview High School, I shadowed someone who took me into a choir class, and I went, oh, there's a lot of women in here. Okay, this could work out for me. And so you're saying all I have to do is mildly pay attention and hum. Okay, I can do that. And there's women, so I have a shot. Well, all of that backfired, like except for the part of the singing and the A that came out of it.
Mm-hmm.
The whole women part backfired, but I got into the musicals and all that kind of stuff as well, and being on stage and performing and all of that. So it all kind of clumped together into what you see in front of you of this person who is on the radio making an idiot out of himself most days. So,
okay, we got a question from White Chipmunk. She says, my question is two parts. First part, how do you feel? And I'll click it up so we can all see it here. It says, how do you feel about NBA refs not having to be held accountable for their calls?
Okay, this is a chicken and the egg situation, because I hate NBA challenges. It takes forever for these challenges to get done. The game gets flowing. You get a foul where somebody accidentally hits somebody up around the head, and all of a sudden the game comes to just a screeching halt as we have to look at the replay 6 ways from Sunday to figure out if there was contact, if there was malice behind it, and all that stuff for flagrant 1 or flagrant 2. So I would love if we had some kind of way to punish this and police this and all that kind of stuff without having to bring the game to a screeching halt. You guys know what I mean?
Yeah, I got you.
So, like, I don't know what the answer to this is. Yeah, should they be demoted? Yes. Should they not be allowed to do playoff games? Yes. Should they not be allowed to do finals? That kind of stuff? Absolutely. I mean, we all know, what was it? The 2018 finals, game 1, with the block charge, which turned into the replay thing, which was an absolute train wreck. And should there have been some kind of thing that took place of Ken Mauer, I should say, and Tony Brothers and whoever else was a part of that crew? Yes, there should have been something there. I just don't know what that is besides demoting them out of a game, because there are so few referees that are out there and people that want to be involved in refereeing. Because honestly, who really wants to get yelled at by fans and players for 3 hours out of the day and have everybody hate you?
Right.
Like, I coach, until this year, I coached 7th grade basketball. And I would run into all the time where you would just get these refs that were just brutal, and I'd never rail them, because why? We're just gonna run into a situation again where there's gonna be less refs, and we need more of them, and that's the only way we're gonna get better ones. And so I wish I had an answer for you that was better than this incoherent rambling, but frankly, I don't. I think the only way you're gonna be able to do this is if you can demote them, teach them how to be better, and maybe get the players and coaches to get off their backs a tiny bit so we get more referees. Make sense?
Oh, totally. She says, I hear that, for instance, Raptors head coach Nick Nurse just paid a $50,000 fine for mouthing off of the ref. I think that there needs to be some sort of complaint process to where, they're not so hypercritical. It's kind of like, we're not going to, talk about police brutality, but like, somebody files like a complaint. It's like your word against the officer. Who is the court going to believe? With the officer, of course, they're going to believe the officer. Same thing with the NBA. It's like, they can't be that hypersensitive to where any criticism just gets them, triggered and they start fining and stuff like that.
Exactly. And I get it. The last thing we need is these coaches and players to come into pressers and go, the refereeing we saw last night was absolute BS. And I understand like that whole thing you kind of want to avoid, but there needs to be something better than, oh yeah, we're going to get the 2-minute report. Oh, the 2-minute report says that wasn't a foul. Well, it's like, what the hell does that do now? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't want an apology letter from the league. I'd like to figure out how to get the call right. So it comes back to, I almost wonder if you're better off with the whole eye in the sky. Like, I wonder if the XFL has actually stumbled into the way this should be done, which is we take a referee, we put him in the booth, we have them watch what's taking place there, and if the call is incorrect, and it's blatantly incorrect, and you could do it within 10 seconds, buzz down and solve the problem that way. And I wonder if the XFL has actually stumbled into the way we solve a lot of these issues.
Well, within the replay, even with the NFL, I mean, it's just, I remember the first play, for those of you who don't know football, some of you guys are way too young to remember this, but 1986, I was at that game because we were in Chicago. The Browns were playing the Bears. It was the first year after the Bears won the Super Bowl, but it was the first game they used replay, and the ball was caught in the end zone, and they thought it was fumbled out, and they reviewed it, and it turns out the Browns had a touchdown. We lost the game 41-31, but like ever since then when they do the challenges, they're so, you could take, like you were just saying, 10 seconds, you could tell if the play is good or bad. They sit there and fast forward, rewind, and it's like, what are they looking at? And that just killed the flow with commercials and everything. Totally need to change all that stuff, man. Ridiculous. Ridiculous.
That's the side of it that they've got to figure out. And I wonder, in the hierarchy of things the NBA needs to look into, I wonder where it sits. But I think that is one of the things they got to look at, because the last 2 minutes of an NBA game to begin with take damn near forever. And it should not be that way. And some of it has to do with the replay stuff, and some of it has to do with timeouts, and some of it you're just never going to get rid of, and you're never going to solve because, coaches are going to hold their timeouts till the end so they can call them and drop a play and all that kind of stuff. So I'm interested to see where that is, and I wonder if the eye in the sky might just be the solution to all of this. But the key is just put like a 10-second thing on it. So then that way we're not putting this to a screeching halt. We're going to commercial. We're coming back. We still don't know. We've seen the replay 6 times. We've got, Mark Jackson telling you one thing and Jeff Van Gundy telling you another thing. And Mike Breen is trying to play in the middle. And in reality, Jeff Van Gundy wants to do nothing but talk about the ice cream he ate last night. So there's a solution there somewhere.
Yeah.
So
smack in the middle. Now, how old were you when you first started remembering the 90s Tribe?
So that would have put me 88, 95. My understanding, there would be no math. 7, 8. Okay. So I told the story when Joe Tate passed away. When I was like 5, I got a clock radio for Christmas. It was a Fisher Price. It was either Fisher Price or Play School clock radio. And it was this hokey little, it was definitely built for kids. It had little stars on it and whatnot. But the coolest thing about it is I had a radio in my room. And I could sit there and I would watch the game as it was taking place, here, as it was happening in the third quarter or something like that of the Cavs game. My mother would send me to bed, and I would immediately go and turn the radio on and put Joe Tate on, and I'd fall asleep listening to Joe Tate. Or the same thing would happen with the Tribe game. I would immediately put on Tom Hamilton, fall asleep listening to that. When I heard Mike Snyder, I knew I was really in trouble. That was one of those where it was like, oh no, tomorrow's gonna be a long day. Like the minute you heard Snides and I wasn't asleep, like I was like, oh no. And it was funny because probably about 2 years ago I met Mike Snyder, and I said to him, I go, "You are the voice of bedtime." And he was like, "Really? Like that's how you're gonna talk to me?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, you were the voice of bedtime. I knew when I heard your voice on the post-game show, I had to get to bed, or else I was totally toast, and I was gonna be a zombie the next day."
Snides, his sleep schedule must have been jacked up because I remember he used to do the Trevisano show, and then he would do the Cavs post game. He would get up in the morning and do, I think it was Wills and Coleman, or was it Wills?
Yeah, he'd pop onto that one too. Yeah.
He was like the sports director for that's a lot of hours, man. Do you ever run into that? Do you get called in on weird hours, or is your schedule kind of static?
So ever since I found my way to Baskin and Phelps, it's become more static. Now, before then, it was very much we're gonna call you and you got to hop in whenever. So I first started running overnights. I was there, my schedule was basically midnight to 6 a.m.
Oh boy.
And you were just zombified. You understood. You were like humans aren't. I was always a night owl, but you're like humans aren't meant to stay up this late.
No.
So
No.
humans aren't meant to live this schedule. Like it's just not natural.
Mhm.
And so as that happened, you kind of work your way up the ladder because the funny thing with radio is it's as blue collar as you possibly get. And so you kind of become the go-to fill-in guy, and that's when your schedule gets jumped all over the place. That's when it's like, okay, you're going to come in and you're going to run board for Carmen and Lima. Then the next day, you're going to need to run board for Nick Wilson. Then you're going to have to come in here and do Baskin and Phelps, and then I need you to come cut up sound for the Cavs game at night. And you're just like, okay, so some nights I'm going to sleep, and other nights I'm not going to sleep, and naps become your best friend. Like you immediately turn into a toddler, where you're just like, okay, it's 3:00, I'm exhausted, I need to take a nap. Like you just immediately turn back into a toddler, where it's like, okay, nap time. All right, give me a story. Let's sit on the magic carpet, eat a snack, and then go to bed.
Now, how old were you when you first went to your first Indians game? Do you remember your first tribe game?
Oh God, would have had to have been probably around that area, 95, 94, somewhere there. My folks are not the biggest sports fans. They half pay attention. It still kind of puzzles them to this day how I ended up in this line of work. And they pay attention. They keep an eye, that kind of stuff, what the news will say, but that's about it. And so my neighbors across the street, huge tribe fans, especially when they were good. So the first tribe game I went to was with them. And the one thing my mom always loved was baseball. It was the one thing she would pay attention to. And that has been passed down to me tenfold.
Nice.
I love baseball. It's ridiculous how much I love baseball.
Who did you? Oh, sorry.
Huh? No,
I'm sorry.
go.
I was going to say, who did you root for? Did you have a favorite player you rooted for?
Oh man,
It's probably
I was so the problem. So when I was a kid, so the Brewers were awful, and I didn't have that one. So the tribe Travis Fryman was always high up there for me. I always dug Travis Fryman, mostly because I played third base as a kid. Not the most mobile guy. So it worked out nicely that they would stick me at the hot corner. I wouldn't have to move very much.
Mhm.
I was a huge, loved Randy Johnson. Thought Randy Johnson was unbelievable. Ken Griffey Jr., Alex Rodriguez, all of those kind of guys sit near and dear to my heart. Tribe-wise, though, Travis Fryman.
And out of the 90s, I'm gonna put you on the spot right now. Out of these guys, rank them. Give me your top three tribe people out of the 90s tribe guys. Out of Lofton, Baerga, Nagy, Bell, Omar, Tomei, Ramirez, and Mesa. Give me your top three.
Ramirez is the best right-handed hitter I've ever seen in my life. He's also the best two-strike hitter I've ever seen in my life. That dude was better with two strikes on him than he was without. The best thing, he is one for me. Manny Ramirez is one. Unbelievable. The best thing, and when I coached Little League Baseball, I'd use this line all the time because you'd always get the kid. We had a home run fence. We always had a kid who hit one home run. And from that moment on, he would do nothing but swing out of his shoes. Like just trying so hard to cream a ball over there. And I'd always tell him, because I remembered reading Manny Ramirez saying this, I'm a gap-to-gap doubles hitter, and the ball occasionally goes over the fence. And I always said, that's hitting. That's it, right there. I am a gap-to-gap hitter, and the ball occasionally goes over the fence. Manny is one. Two, I'll go controversial. Kenny Lofton.
Ooh, nice.
That's not bad.
Kenny Lofton is a Hall of Famer. Kenny Lofton should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. If you go by wins above replacement for center fielders, I believe he is the 10th best center fielder that has ever played.
Oh, wow.
I believe that is the case. If he's not 10th, he might be like 12th or 11th. Nonetheless, he is one of the best center fielders we have ever seen in baseball history. He is a guy you could have dropped him in any era and he would have been a superstar. And for some reason, he is one of those guys that has just been forgotten due to time.
I think it's because the leadoff hitter is just not as emphasized anymore. I mean, the stolen base is a lost art with analytics now.
The funny thing with him, man, is he could hit for pop and he walked. That's the part of it that's so fascinating. If you would drop him in today's game, he'd be fantastic because he had a little bit of pop in his bat. He could swipe bases at a good enough clip that they'd still let him do it, and he walked. He was super patient at the disc. It's the one thing that when you look at Omar, you hold against him is the fact that Omar Vizquel did not walk, and he didn't hit for a whole lot of power. Where you look at Lofton walked, and he was so talented in center field. And I think what ended up holding him back was the fact that he played for so damn long that we all remember him as Kenny Lofton over the hill. Okay, he was kind of fast. When he came back, he was in Tribe in 07, right? When they made that play.
07.
So, yeah, everybody remembers him for that and forgets that, like, 95 Kenny Lofton, 96 Kenny Lofton, 97 with the Braves Kenny Lofton was unreal how good that dude was in baseball.
So fun to watch.
He was sensational. He should be a Hall of Famer. It is a crime that he is not in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
He should be the statue over Jim Thome, if you're asking me. But we'll get into that in a second.
He needs a statue for sure.
Well, Tome's 3, okay. and 600 some odd home runs. Yeah, awesome. His ability to get on base was fantastic. He had one of the best eyes you'll see out of a major leaguer. You can point to defense, fine. He played first base. I mean, Gold Glove first baseman only gets you so far. I think the power hitting alone puts him there. The other guys, Baerga's peak was never long enough. Baerga's peak was fantastic. It was just never long enough. You can say the same thing with Albert Bell. You could make a Hall of Fame Albert Bell case if you go, okay, his peak, though short, was so unbelievable that you could make that case. I mean, how many seasons he had 40 homers and 40 doubles? It was ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
And Omar, I watched Omar with my own eyes. He was unbelievable. He was a magician at shortstop. He was one of the finest shortstops we've ever seen in our lives, and will go down in history. It's him and it's Ozzie Smith. And maybe a little bit after that, I think kids today will point to Andrelton Simmons and throw him in that same conversation. Ozzie and Omar were in a different world than Andrelton Simmons. And he's sensational, but those guys were absolutely nuts. And the one thing that will forever hold Omar back was the fact that he didn't hit for power in an era where shortstops were hitting for power, and he didn't walk. And that's the two things that people are going to point to for the rest of his career and go, he'll be on the outside looking in until he gets to the Veterans Committee, and the Veterans Committee will put him right in there. That's all the horrific stuff that's come out now since, with his wife and everything that happened in The Athletic is going to really have an issue. Whether you believe that the Hall of Fame needs to have a moral compass is another argument for another day, but that's just the case.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah. Now this is cheap ownership. I know people roll their eyes when I talk about this. Goes back to Dick Jacobson not signing Albert Bell, and then we didn't sign Tillman, then we didn't sign Ramirez. I mean, just year after year after year, we didn't sign him. If we keep Tommy and Ramirez, for those contracts, take them into the new century, does that group win the World Series in your opinion?
I could really tick Indians fans off right now. They should have won the World Series in the lockout year. They would have won the World Series in the lockout year.
94. That's what I think about that too.
Yeah.
I think about Indians and Expos that year.
Exactly. It would have been so cool to watch, like Larry Walker and Randy Johnson and all of those guys wearing Expos uniforms. I mean, it would have been Major League Baseball would have lost their damn mind if it ended up being Expos and Indians, but it would have been sensational to watch from a baseball sense.
I think Pedro was on that team too, if I'm not mistaken.
Pedro was there.
Yeah.
Wow. I forgot about that.
Was he there? Was he traded from the Dodgers by then?
So I don't know. I think he was there.
Boy.
I don't know either. We're doing this off the top of our heads, but for the sake of lore, he was there. Yeah. Let's not let facts get in the way of a really good story.
There you go.
So go ahead.
But I think that would have been the year. 94 would have been the year. 97.
So close in 97.
Oh my god. Oh my god. So Brian Anderson, it was one of the first times we had him come in studio where he did an hour straight. Which, by the way, BA is the freaking best. I cannot.
I love when him and Rizzo would go back and I listen to those guys for hours, man. I love it.
BA is the man. I'm that dude is phenomenal. If you watch Rays games at all, he's a phenomenal broadcaster on top of that, and an even better dude. And he came in studio, and it was after that Tribe 97 documentary premiered on MLB Network. So that had to be 2-3 years ago. And he told the whole story of it. And he was like, I thought we were going to win. Like, we really believed like that team should have. And Craig Counsell, gets on base, and then Edgar Renteria hits a dribbler, and here we are.
Up the middle.
It just sucks. I mean, it sucks. That team could have gotten over the hump, and after that, it just started getting shaky. I think the best bet would have been 94, and I know that's the most heartbreaking part.
Yeah.
Now, who do you think's better, Charlie Manuel or Mike Hargrove?
Put on the spot.
So Charlie Manuel will go down forever thanks to Mike. I think it was Mike Snyder who used to do it. Do you guys remember the contest where they would play the Charlie Manuel clip, and if you could guess what Charlie said, you got tickets to the next game?
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny. Yes. It was
I will never forget that. That made me laugh so hard as a kid that they would play these Charlie Manuel clips, and people would call in, and he'd come so close, and they just wouldn't get it.
Oh, I forgot about that. That was
So I'm gonna be a jerk on this one. I can't be impartial. I think Grover was the better manager, and that's partially because I've gotten to know Grover, and Grover rocks. Grover is so cool.
Stoic presence.
So cool.
The human rain delay, man. I remember him. He was vaguely when I was a kid. I remember him like when Andre Thornton was still at the Tribe, and he would just come up there and just touch every part of his bat and hip it up, and it would take him like 3 minutes just to take the first pitch. I loved it.
The driest sense of humor on the planet, but he has one of the best laughs on the planet too. It's one of those like he starts giggling and he gets you going, and
nice.
Grover rocks. Grover is awesome, and the best Grover story I can tell you. So we had Paul Byrd on, and Paul Byrd, of course, was the starting pitcher for the Indians during the snow game, the snow opening day. Mm-hmm. Grover was the manager. He had a no-hitter going through 4 2/3. He couldn't see anymore. Grover called the game. We had Paul Byrd on, and we go, okay, Paul, talk about we're doing opening day. You started opening day. What was it like? And he goes, I never told this story before, but I had a clause in my contract that I got, I think it was $50K, I want to say, if I made 10 starts. And he goes, I had 10 wins. That was it. And he goes, I got 9 wins that season. And then that game got postponed with 4 2/3. Had another out happen, had Grover let me get to the end of the inning, I would have had 5 innings, which would have been a win. It would have been a complete game, and I would have had a no-hitter for my career. So you tell Mike Hargrove that he owes me $50K.
Nice.
So we get the cut of it, and we play it for Grover. And Grover immediately comes back and goes, dude couldn't throw strikes. If he'd throw more strikes, he would have been out of that inning in no time. But no, he instead had everybody going 2-2, 3-2 all damn game. Had he thrown strikes, he would have been out of it. So in reality, I don't owe him diddly except to tell him to throw more strikes. It was an all-timer. And you could tell Grover too, that competitive fire was coming back in Grover of just like, no, I'm doing what I can to get my team to win this game, and you're not getting in my way, and you can't tell me what I did was right. And you could kind of see that like fire getting back into Grover as he was telling it. It was fantastic.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Grover's the man.
Yeah.
So what's your opinion on Pete Rose and all the steroid bunch getting into the hall? What do you think?
So the steroid bunch, I think, should get in. It sounds funny. Everybody was on performance-enhancing drugs, or at least I choose to believe that everybody was on performance-enhancing drugs at that point. It starts turning into college athletes getting paid under the table, where it's like if you're not taking the money, there's something wrong with you. It's kind of like if you weren't on performance-enhancing drugs in the 90s, there might have been something wrong with you. Like you probably needed to look inward. I think they should be in. They still had to make contact. It's the best argument I've heard. Barry Bonds still had to make contact. Alex Rodriguez still had to make contact. And while it may have prolonged some careers, while there may have been some shaky stuff going on with it, it just boiled down to everybody was doing it for every Barry Bonds, there was a Kevin Brown. For every, and I mean, Andy Pettitte is kind of a funky one in there because he claims he never did it, but he did it for rehab. Whatever. For every Roger Clemens, there's a Barry Bonds. Like there are both sides to all of it. Now, the Pete Rose side of it, the best argument that I ever heard for Pete Rose not being in the Hall of Fame was the simple fact that baseball had one rule and one rule only. Don't gamble. Like, that was their hard, fast rule. The performance-enhancing drugs guy, there was never a rule on the books that says you should not do HGH. So you could point to that, and while we all knew it was wrong, and while we all knew it was cheating the game and all that kind of stuff, it was happening. It was happening right in front of our eyes, and Bud Selig profited off of it and loved every bit of it and chose to sweep it under the rug until the Mitchell report came out. And then he was appalled by the whole thing. Pete Rose, there's one rule. Don't gamble on baseball. And do we know he claims he never gambled on his own team? Fine. If you let Pete Rose in, you got to let the Black Sox in. I think those two go hand in hand. And exactly. I think it kind of works that way. So Pete Rose, I think they should let him in at this point. The guy's the all-time hit leader. He's unbelievable. We don't have any records that says that he bet on his own team, at least to my knowledge. Could be wrong on that one. I think Pete Rose should be in. I think he's suffered for long enough. He should get his moment in the sun. I mean, the guy was unbelievable. And I'm in the camp. Look, I think it's dumb. I do not believe it is the job of the baseball writers to be the moral compass of the Hall of Fame. And the proof of that is the fact that the NFL Hall of Fame just went, look, OJ's getting in, and we're not removing. And we all know what happened there. We're not removing OJ. It's that simple. So your job is to tell the story of baseball. And you cannot tell the story of baseball without Pete Rose. And you cannot tell the story of baseball without Barry Bonds, Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Alex Rodriguez, Roger Clemens, down the line from there. So, yes, they're in. They're in. And you have to tell the story of baseball. That's your job. So you put them in the exhibit and go, hey, everybody was on performance-enhancing drugs at this point. Everybody was doing stuff that probably shouldn't have done. And we just have to live with that fact.
Does that make it after the fact, all this stuff coming out and all that, does that make that era any less magical for you? Or is just, you're a kid and it's just still always going to be the same?
It's always going to be magical. I mean, come on. When you go, this is the proof of how magical that era was. And I'm not saying this to incriminate anyone because we don't know. When you walk into a Dick's Sporting Goods and you buy a baseball item, especially clothing, what's the number one thing that's on it? It's the Swingman logo. Ken Griffey Jr., backwards hat, dropping the bat after crushing a home run. That tells you all you need to know right there. Like, that era is a special era in baseball to the fact where that Swingman logo is still seen everywhere. It's like the Jordan logo, man. It's still seen everywhere, even though it falls into... I mean, Ken Griffey Jr. hasn't crushed a home run in, 10 years?
11 years, yeah.
Yeah, and yet that Swingman logo is still iconic. So, no, it doesn't do anything to take it away. They did the 30 for 30 on Sosa and McGwire.
That's a good one.
Griffey in there too.
Good one.
It was excellent. It was very, very well done. My only complaint with it is they didn't spend enough time on the steroids. I feel like it was like at the tail end, it was like, hey, oh, by the way, we found out they're on steroids. Oops, sorry. Like, you should have spent a touch more time on that, but it was well done. But such an iconic moment in baseball. I still have somewhere in my folks' house the VHS tape of Mark McGwire hitting home run 62. I've got it somewhere.
I remember that night because, well, for different reasons. We got a question from Janice here in a second, but that was the night, September 7th, 1998 or 98. It was right around there. But that was the second night I got a DUI. It was my second DUI I ended up getting that night. So that's I'll always remember But I had a DUI because I blew a .284. So McGuire broke the home run record, and I broke the DUI record in the same night.
Iconic moments in history.
No, we
See it now.
We got a question about the I'm not going to put what she called the Astros, but the 2017 Astros with the cheating scandal and the stealing signs and all that. Janice feels they should be stripped of the World Series. What do you think about the 17 Astros?
What does that do? What does stripping them of the title do? We've seen it happen in college sports so many times where they've. Are we all supposed to forget that Reggie Bush existed? Like, don't pay attention to that. That USC team with Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush didn't happen. Shh. Like, are we supposed to like all of a sudden be brainwashed? It's the biggest problem I have with this whole idea of like, oh, strip them of the title. What does that do? Are we gonna go, hey, that parade that took place in Houston didn't happen? Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the right punishment is. I think it was garbage that Major League Baseball let the players off as easy as they did. I would have liked to have seen punishment to the players instead of them having immunity to blame everybody else. I think that was a mistake. I would have it more than anything else. I coached Little League Baseball for 10 years. So like I can't get youth sports out of my head. I saw more kids fall in love with Jose Altuve because he was 5'6" and he was crushing home runs. And he was so much fun to watch, and he was fast as hell and all of that stuff. And the damage that was done to that dude's reputation hurts baseball more than they could possibly imagine. Because that dude meant so much to a younger generation of kids who were like, it doesn't matter how tall you are. It doesn't matter how ripped you are. It doesn't matter all these different things. You can still be great at this game. Well, now you can still be great at this game if somebody's in the back banging on a trash can for you. So it kind of hurts that a little bit more than anything. I don't think taking the title away from them does anything for the means, but I wish the players would have been punished. I wish Jose Altuve would have had some kind of a suspension. I wish Carlos Correa would have had something. And the one that did you in more than anything was spring training of 20 before everything got locked down. And they were having all the Astros press conferences. And those smug bastards were like not even apologizing for the whole thing. Like there was no remorse to what took place. It was them just going, "Yep, we did it. Tough shit." Like that was the whole thing. And you were just like, "Oh my God, show a tiny bit of remorse. Have some kind of like, all right, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Okay, it was wrong. Like give me a little bit of that instead of just going like, well, we did it. We've got rings. You don't."
All right, so let's get into why they call you Packer fan Dan. You were alluding to this when we were talking the pre-show, but obviously it's because your parents were Packer fans and they came from Wisconsin. What was your first memory and who you start rooting for when you obviously it had to have been Favre? Was he your idol of the Packers going up or what?
The man who, until the end of time, I believe was the influence for Snapchat beginning, or at least had something to do with it. Because a lot of things that damaged his reputation might have went away. But no, it was Favre. And I remember as a kid, it was after the Browns game, and it was a 4:00 game with the Packers. And for some reason, Fox was showing soap opera reruns. This offended me to my core because Brett Favre was going to break the passing record. And they weren't going to put it on national TV. And so I went to my desktop computer and I booted that puppy up and I got on the dial-up internet and I wrote Fox a nasty, nasty email saying this is an abomination that you are not putting Brett Favre's game on here so that I can watch my quarterback break the touchdown record or the passing record or whatever one he was going to win that day. And it was like from that moment on, I just became hooked because of that reason and my grandfather telling me stories of Bart Starr, and Ray Nitschke, and Paul Hornung, and all the other different great players from that era who I'm totally forgetting, sadly. And growing up from that whole thing and hearing these stories, and then Favre, and just the way that it went and how crappy the 70s and the 80s were. And then, all of a sudden here comes this kid from Mississippi to save the day. And it just stuck with me forever. And it's the one bit of true fandom. No, I take that back. There are two things that I am a diehard fan of. One of them is the Green Bay Packers. I can't kick it. I am a degenerate to watch these games with. I'm a masochist to the nth degree. I think they're going to lose every single week. I talk myself into them losing every week, and then I'm like mildly surprised when they win, and then immediately I'm like, well, they should have lost, and here's the 6 reasons why. And the other one is is U.S. soccer. Those are like the two things that I have left. Everything else has kind of been dulled, sadly, and my love of baseball will never be dulled. But like, I'm not living and dying by every Brewers pitch. Basketball, I was kind of a man without a country. My family didn't pay attention a lot to the NBA and that stuff. My dad watched Jordan because he was working in Chicago at the time. So I saw a lot of Michael Jordan. And I stopped watching the NBA in the 2000s. And then all of a sudden found Steve Nash and the Phoenix Suns in 2006, thanks to my buddy Joe, who was like, you got to watch this dude play. It'll bring you back to the NBA. And just watching Nash and Marion, Raja Bell, and Amari Stoudemire, and all of those different teams, and Boris Diaw when he was thin, play, it was just unbelievable and blew my mind and brought me back to the NBA. And so now I'm kind of back to being a man without a country in the NBA who just enjoys the game of basketball. And I cannot kick the Packers' love. And I can't kick that fandom inside of me that still goes back to being a little kid watching Favre hit Donald Driver over the middle and watching Aaron Rodgers, watching Rodgers hit Driver or Jennings or even like Favre to Javon Walker that I've seen enough times in my life to go obscure wide receiver for you. Like, that will not die in me. And I hope it never does, because it's really nice to have that I can fall back to, because then I get everything that Browns fans are going through. I get it with Indians fans, Cavs fans, all that kind of stuff, because I can immediately go and go, yes, I've had my heart ripped out. I get it. It's still there. And like, when that dies, it's going to be a sad day, and I probably need to get out of this business and find something else to do. So I hope it never dies. I'll never forget, I heard Eric Clapton once say, I still get butterflies every single time I walk out on a stage. And he goes, I'm going to have to retire the minute I don't get butterflies when I walk out on the stage. And that's exactly how I feel. The minute that I lose that, I'm toast.
We got a random hockey question from the Canadian in the audience.
Oh, God. I'm the wrong one to ask.
This one, I don't even follow hockey. I can tell you who I would pick. Who's the best hockey player ever, Gretzky or Orr?
Wayne Gretzky.
I would say Gretzky, too, and that's not even close. I mean, I don't remember Bobby Orr, but I mean,
I don't
Gretzky
remember Bobby Orr either. I've watched enough Gretzky, and Gretzky 97 for N64 was fantastic. That's the one that brings it home.
Heck yeah. Now, continuing on the line of the Browns or the Packers stuff, when the Browns left, you were obviously quite young, but did that Cleveland not having a team, did that just kind of amplify you loving the Packers then?
I think so. I think that had something to do with it. Deep down, I think so. I don't know that for sure, though. Like, again, I was so young, and my folks really didn't pay attention a whole lot to sports. So I'm sure that played into it. I just can't tell you for sure. I know that's a really wishy-washy answer, but sure.
Why not?
Kind of the way it falls. No city should ever lose their sports team. Ever. What happened to the Seattle Supersonics is unforgivable.
No.
What Stan Kroenke did to the St. Louis Rams, and I know, look, you can go, well, they were in Los Angeles to begin with. Unforgivable. The Expos, unforgivable. Nobody should lose their team. It is the biggest sin in sports. It is the worst thing that can happen. No kid should ever have their team ripped away from them. Hell, the Chargers. And they can point to, oh, yeah, we didn't have a stadium. Oh, we didn't have the giant fan base. BS. You can make it work. Dean Spanos could have made that work. And they didn't. They took the easy way out, went to LA. And now here's, Qualcomm Stadium collecting dust or whatever they're calling it now in San Diego, and a city without a football team. Like, that should have never happened. The NFL should have immediately stepped in the same way that the MLS stepped in when the crew was when Precourt was trying to move the crew to Austin. The NFL should have stepped into Art Modell and said, look, we'll give you an expansion team. Sell the Browns. Sell them to someone else.
Well, that'd been beautiful, wouldn't it?
It's what should have happened. And Paul Tagliabue, I don't know if it's because he didn't, and we'll never know because sadly, Tagliabue's no longer with us. I don't know if it's because he never had the gall. I don't know if because he didn't have the fortitude to do it. It may have been on the table, and the owners decided to vote it down for some dumbass reason. We'll never know. But that's what should have happened. It's what should have happened. It should have been, Al Lerner, do you want this football team, yes or no? You don't? Okay, let's find someone else. Because the Cleveland Browns should have never left. And it was such a simple solution. And it all comes back to Mike White and Art Modell not seeing eye to eye.
Yeah, moratorium on stadium talks is the words I remember in the Plain Dealer back in the day. Mm-hmm. Now, have you ever seen, and going down the Favre line, Patty was going to ask him about something about Mary. Isn't it? Did you like that? Do you like something about Mary?
Oh, yeah, Brett Favre.
Of course. Who doesn't love something about Mary?
Favre.
So good in there. Favre.
Yeah.
He's such a bad actor. Oh, my God. He's an awful actor. That movie was so good. I wonder, is that, and I'm going to totally derail this whole thing, and I apologize for this.
No, it's cool. We're used to it.
I wonder how much that movie had an influence on all the Judd Apatow rom-coms that came after it.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that was like the first movie where they were making all sorts of kind of off-color jokes and all that kind of stuff in there and having some fun with it and all that. And like, I feel like that's what spurred the 40-Year-Old Virgin, and that's what spurred Knocked Up, and that's what spurred even Superbad. You could throw that in there too, where like you could kind of make this rom-com, and I don't know if Superbad's a rom-com, but you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
That had this sense of humor to it. That was a dirtier sense of humor than what we were used to, because we came off of and hey, I'll admit it. When Harry Met Sally is a fantastic movie. You've Got Mail, really good movie. Like, I'll admit that rom-coms are pretty good, and there are some of them that are really well done. But they took a turn after When Something About Mary, and I wonder if that's what led to Judd Apatow and all that stuff.
I probably did. My favorite rom-com. Some people might not classify, but I think Bridesmaids was genius.
Bridesmaids was so good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
So well done. That whole group, that whole Maya Rudolph, Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, and that's the one Kristen Wiig movie that I can sit through. I'm usually not her biggest fan, but she is so good in that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was just top to bottom. I just liked it because if they would just know that guys, we like, a little bit of toilet humor in the jokes. You might want to take pop out something like one or two of those. I would sit through 5 hours, 5 straight Julia Roberts movies if I just get one or two of those in a fucking movie. Hollywood, if they're out there, just cater a little bit to the guys, so we're not stuck through the predictable. A small girl goes back to her hometown and finds some guy who works on a truck, and they get married at the end of the movie. I mean, it's
God,
literally
I'll never forget. I got dragged to Sweet Home Alabama on a date, and it was one of the worst movies I ever saw. And I sat the whole time, and I was just like, "Oh my God, this is awful. This is
my God,
not good."
I remember that actually with Reese Witherspoon. It was
it's just like, this is just and my girlfriend loves that movie, and I'm like, man, that is just not my cup of tea. Just please don't let me watch that. Just I saw it once. I'm good.
Now, I was stalking your Twitter for a little bit, and you was talking about OU. So did you start – what made you decide to go down to Ohio University?
I wanted to get as far away from my parents as humanly possible. And I initially applied for the University of Hawaii. Nice. And I got in. And my folks then went, no. I'm like, you said anywhere. And they were like, no, you're staying in Ohio. All right, fine. And Cincinnati didn't do it for me. And so I went, well, Athens, it's a beautiful campus. And I liked, I liked everything that they had there. I loved the way that the campus looked. I loved the way it felt and all of that kind of stuff. And then I got down there and had far too much fun for my own liking and was politely asked to leave, where I found my way back up here, back into my parents' house, and had to kind of figure it out from there, and found my way to Cleveland State, and here I am now.
Outstanding. So is that what did you get into broadcasting when you was at Cleveland State? What did you end up majoring in?
So, well, when I was in Athens, I majored in drinking with a minoring in a lot of other bad things.
So, you know, that's what college is for.
Absolutely. Good on you, man. So I ended up majoring in journalism, and in between majoring in drinking and then majoring in journalism, I had a cup of coffee as a history major. I had a cup of coffee as a music major. I had a cup of coffee thinking I should be a teacher. I was all over the place. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my life. I didn't want to be locked down to anything. And I ended up I decided to get into journalism because I went, okay, you know, this'll work. You know, I'm a decent writer. I'm a decent enough writer. Let's do this. And I was shooting a breeze with a buddy of mine, a guy by the name of Graham Beck. And he goes, hey, I just was made the program director at Cleveland State's radio station, WCSB. I want a sports show. Never really had one. I wanted to start a sports show. You're my guy. And I went, what? And he's like, yeah, you're my guy. You're going to host the damn thing. And he goes, he's like, I shot the breeze with you enough. You could do this in your sleep. You'll be fine. And I went, okay. You know, and I went through the meeting and all that stuff. And so here I am. I had to be interviewed for this whole thing. So here I am, this sports guy who my father's passions were science fiction and music. Those were like the two things that he still to this day. You know, I grew up with a record collection, started in the 1978 and working its way up from there. And so I'm sitting in this room surrounded by music nerds, trying to pitch a sports show to them. And the one guy was a huge baseball fan. Goes, Miguel Cabrera or Mike Trout? And I go, Trout, all day, every day. Like, come on now. This isn't even a contest. Miguel Cabrera, fine, Triple Crown. That's cute. Mike Trout is one of the greatest baseball players we've ever seen in our lives. And I went on this whole rant, and he immediately went, he's hired. And the other ones were like, wait a minute, we don't even know what he's going to play for music and that kind of stuff. He goes, doesn't matter. He goes, he'll figure it out. He's hired. And so that's how it started. It just turned into, you know, from there, for 4 years I had that show, 3 or 4 years. I had the Armchair Athlete on WCSB on Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Okay.
And it just started there. And I had no commercial breaks. I had very little direction. And I just kind of figured it out. And then I'd go back and listen to shows that I did and go, okay, I like this. I hate this. I don't like that. And this worked out okay. And I kind of just pieced it together from there until it occurred to me one day, well, that's a whole nother story of I graduated far later than I should have. And it was because I got big into the cycling industry and thought I was going to find my way there into a full-time position there, working in bikes and all of that kind of stuff. And then that all completely fell apart and fell through due to things closing and selling off and all that kind of stuff. And I ended up going, maybe I can make this radio thing work. This is kind of fun. And so I sent an application in to be, it was when Kylie, no, it was Chuck Booms. It was when Chuck Booms left the station.
Okay, I remember that. It's 14.
They had an opening for a morning show host, and I went, I could do this, and I put in an application. I get a phone call from our program director, Andy Roth, aka the Poobah. And Poobah hops on the phone and he goes, no, what are you doing? Have you ever hosted a radio show? I go, yeah, I do it once a week. He's like, no, once a week for 2 hours is nothing. Stop that. You need more experience in that. And I go, okay, well, how do I get that? He goes, how about this? Take this resume, submit it for this part-time board op position, and I'll call you back in 10 minutes. So I did that, put it in, 10 minutes later, I was hired.
Your first job was running the board then. Is that taking the calls and directing all the...
So how this works in radio, the two main, you got the host, everybody knows those people. The producer is usually in most station, the person who runs board, which is the person who makes sure all the commercials play and the microphones get turned on and off, and I play all the stupid sound effects and all that kind of stuff. And then the producer, the call screener, is the one who answers all the calls and posts stuff to the web and does all that kind of stuff. Well, our station's kind of funky because we're one of the few, and this is crap that nobody else cares about, but we're one of the few where the board is actually in with the hosts, which does not happen very often at all. In fact, it doesn't happen. It's in a completely different room than every other studio on the planet. For some reason, ours is configured this way. I have no idea why, but that's how it is. So those positions got flopped. So the producer's usually in the other room answering calls, doing all that kind of stuff, and then board op is doing what they do. So when I took over Baskin and Phelps, the guys were, I initially got on there with Jake Chapman as, his board op and the board op for that show. And when I became the producer of that show, they were like, the guys kind of said, "Hey, we like the way you run board. Can you do this? Can you multitask it?" And we went, "Well, let's try it." And then the pandemic hit. And it's become the handiest thing on the planet with the fact that I run board and produce the show, because I can be the voice in their head all the time going, "Hi, do this. Hey, make sure you get this read in. Hey, can you do me a solid and, get this? I have breaking news," that kind of stuff. So It's a very long explanation to a very simple question.
Now, did you, when you first started running the board and JG Spooner was vocationally dislocated from the station, did you slide into that position, or when did you get the position you're in now?
Oh, God. So mine was when Jake Chapman moved down to Orlando.
Okay.
Is when I ended up there. Now, board up wise, I filled in on that show a little bit when JG happened. But the funny part was I was always either Baskin and Phelps or Bull and Fox. Those were the two I was on the most. Bull and Fox, Baskin and Phelps. And for some reason, the guys liked me. And when Falar left and Jake Chapman took in, Chris Falar, who's a phenomenal human being and one of my favorite people.
I still know. I still follow on Twitter.
One of the best guys on the planet. Love Chris Falar. Huge influence, great friend. When he took off and Jake Chapman came in, they brought me in as the board op. And then when Jake took off, I got promoted. So that's kind of how it fell. And now we've got Meredith doing all that stuff, and Meredith's excellent too. So, I'm lucky to have her, and I'm lucky to have somebody else I can bounce ideas off of like her. So it's fun, man. It's kind of weird. I was kind of in the right place at the right time in a couple different positions in life, and it's worked out decently.
Okay. Now, do you get to call and set up all the interviews with all the athletes and stuff? How does that work?
Yep. So there's a lot of different ways that this goes. Some of them you end up getting to know people from all sorts of different walks of life. And some of them you stumble into because you were doing stuff earlier. Some numbers you gain from talking to people, other numbers other people haven't passed to you. The best story that I can give you on that is John Greco, which was, so there was a Browns alumni dinner. And Baskin was at the Browns alumni dinner, and he ran into John Greco. And, "Hey, John, how you been? Good to see you," all that kind of stuff. "What are you up to?" John goes, "Nothing. Literally nothing." He goes, "I am Mr. Mom. I take my kids to school. I pick them up from school. That's it." And Andy goes, "Well, we got a radio show. You want to join us?" And he goes, "Is it when the girls don't have to be picked up from school or dropped off at school?" And we go, "Yes." And he goes, "I'd love to." Like, that's how it happened. You run into this in really goofy ways. You just kind of get to know people, and that's how you do it. I don't have any great industrial secret of how to build your Rolodex. It just kind of happens. And the one thing I'll give anybody credit for who's in this business, and the advice I give is be incredibly nice to everybody.
Oh yeah.
Send them thank you texts. Send, a little note every so often. If you read a column you really like of someone, send them an email. It just says, "Hey, I really like the column you just wrote." I got Joe Posnanski's number because he's one of my favorite baseball writers on this earth. I love Joe. He makes me laugh really hard. And I sent him an email one day saying, your last column you wrote really made me laugh. Thank you, man. And he goes, he emailed me back and said, not a problem. Love it. I saw you're a producer. And I go, yeah, I just got into this. Do you want to hop on with Andy Baskin and Jeff Phelps? He goes, I'd love to. Here's my number. Like, that's the kind of way that this stuff happens. So, yeah, I get to set it up. And while it's cool because you get to talk to all these different kind of people. It's also a pain because you're kind of asking people for their time. And we don't really pay anybody. So everybody who joins us weekly does it for free. So, like, I can't get mad at anybody for saying no. You can't get mad at people. So it gets kind of old when you get a bunch of people saying no, and it really gets old when you get people canceling for reasons. So that's where you start getting the scramble.
We're greatly familiar with that on this show. We had Ricky Williams was going to be on at 9:30 live, and then I said it was 9:30, 9:20. It kept getting closer and closer, and I was sitting there. I was like, all right, guys, and I was emailing his agent, like, dude, where's your guys? Like, oh yeah, he just forgot, So 100% can relate to that. Now, was there anybody you just talked to that would just floor you with how mean they were, just like total meano?
I don't have any of those. Okay. I was asked this by my buddies on the golf course the other day. I don't have anyone that I've met and been like, this guy was really mean and this guy was a jerk to me and all of that kind of stuff. And maybe they were, and it's just the Midwestern person in me. But like, I've never ran into that, man. Everybody has been really cool and really generous with their time. And, even people who say no, like most of the time you get like my thing is always like, I'll respond back to you. So like if somebody says, no, I can't join, I always respond back with, hey, no problem. Don't worry about it. Thanks for getting back to me. I appreciate it. Cause the worst is just getting blown off and then, thinking that, oh, maybe they might get back to you. So we probably shouldn't book this time. And that's like the rookie producer thing where it's like, oh, this person just isn't going to get back to you. And you do it for a while and you're like, oh yeah, if they're not responding, they're not joining you. So go find somebody else. Like I've never ran into somebody just being a total mean person. I've never ran into that. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that I book for Jeff Phelps and Andy Baskin, who are really, they don't get into fights with people. They're not out there
so incredibly laid back. Like me and Pat was talking about this. Like how are I mean, I kind of think that they're almost Amish like because like they just never get mad about anything.
Is that because Phelps didn't have power today?
Yeah, let's get into that now. Is Phelps really that cheap? Now, does he actually have a flip phone like from the 2003?
I was listening to that on my way in.
Phelps is not cheap. I will not call him cheap.
Okay.
What I will say is that Jeff Phelps does not understand why people carry computers around in their pocket. He thinks it's insane that we all have computers. We could just buy a computer. Why do I need a computer in my pocket? I want a phone. So give me a phone. And that's his thought process and philosophy on it.
Okay.
It's like, I don't need a computer. I don't want a computer. I want a phone. And we give him all kinds of hell for this flip phone. And on days like today, I'm just, it blows me away. So storm hit, we talked about it earlier. Phelps is out of power. Get a text in the morning that just says, hey, I don't have any power at the house. We look into it. They're not even sending anybody out to fix it. Oh, God, we're going to have to do this on the phone, aren't we? That little flip phone, that damn flip phone made it 4 hours without needing to be charged.
Nice.
Wow.
That little flip phone, man, I can't make fun of it anymore. That flip phone was the MVP of our show today. Because if that thing would have died, we would have been toast. Like, it would have been Baskin and Menningen, and maybe, just maybe, Phelps when his phone gets charged again, when he gets on the bicycle and then clicks the little thing down that you used to have for the headlight and plug that into the phone and pedal like hell. No, that little flip phone is the freaking MVP. I cannot make fun of that thing again.
That's funny, man. Because, like, I mean, you could probably save money with the touchscreen at this point with some of these companies, but I mean, you just made a valid point. I mean, if he doesn't, you know, I love how he talks about his Twitter. He just never goes on there. I mean, I could respect that if you don't have it in your life, you know, why even bother? Fuck it.
He's no use to it. He goes, what does Twitter bring me? Any news that I get, I can read anywhere else. Why do I need people yelling at me? Why do I need to deal with this? This is ridiculous. And the best part is that Fox Sports Ohio made him make a Twitter account. So you can go to Jeff Phelps' Twitter account. It's at Hey Jeff Phelps. You can follow him if you want. You can send him whatever you want. I can tell you now, he will not check it. I think he forgot the password to it. He does not care. And he goes, this thing, it is pointless. I don't understand it. I don't understand the vitriol on it. And some of that stuff I look at and I go, yeah, you know what? I kind of agree with you. Like, there's a lot of the crap that's on there you just don't need. And, you know, it's that whole thing you run into sometimes with your parents and you run into it with your grandparents and that stuff where it's like, I've been on this earth for 50 freaking years and I haven't used this. Why the hell do I need it now? And that's kind of Jeff Phelps.
Now, going down that line, you know, because Baskin and Phelps are obviously quite older than you. Did you have, you know, they're always talking about old topics, you know, the Red Right 88 and the drive, the fumble, stuff like that. Did you have to, I mean, did you already know a lot of that just being a sports fan, or did you have to like study a lot of the older stuff to relate to them on some of that, or how does that work?
So when I turned 20, my buddy's dad was like, you need to experience all of this. You need to understand what it means to be a Cleveland Browns fan, because you don't get it. You know, you've seen the expansion area, you've seen all that stuff. That's nothing. You don't get it. And so he went up in the attic and he brought down a box. And he blew the dust off of it. And here's the videotapes of Red Right 88 and the drive and the fumble and the Jets win and all like the Bernie era stuff and the Don Strock start and all of those different things. And he was like, we're going to knock these out slowly but surely. And he was my boss at the time. So it only worked out better because when your boss is going, hey, you need to come over here and watch this, you show up and watch it. And so thanks to him, thanks to Kevin Biven, I completely understand and have seen all of these different things on an old VCR with old cassette tapes. And I have seen the Red Right 88 game, and I've seen the drive, and I've seen the fumble, and I've seen Don Strock, and I've seen Vinny Testaverde, and I've seen all of this history that has befallen, and it has come in handy. That has come in handy, and the fact that my parents were like, no, you are not going to watch modern cartoons. You are going to watch the cartoons that we grew up with. You are going to watch the Flintstones. You are going to watch the Jetsons. You are going to watch Tom and Jerry. You are going to watch Looney Tunes, and you're going to like it. And that's the basis of our entire relationship, is the fact that they can make a reference to the Flintstones, and I get it. And they can make a reference to the Beverly Hillbillies, and I get it. And and in the beginning, it flummoxed them that someone this young understood it. And now it's just like, yep, this is it. We'll be fine. I can make a Get Smart reference. Menningen will get it.
It's fine, not much.
Which you believe.
Now, are there times when the job just feels like just so long and you're just like, why am I doing like the Johnny Manziel years? I mean, I couldn't talk about Johnny Manziel for 3 freaking years straight. I mean, how do you deal with stuff like that?
I don't blame you. That was an embarrassment. And the stuff that came out of it only made it worse. And the sad thing is like, as time has gone on, guys, the Justin Gilbert pick might actually be more embarrassing than the Johnny Manziel pick.
You traded up.
You traded up for a guy you didn't even have a freaking conference call with, that you've never talked to in your life. You didn't go to his pro day. Like, you didn't go to his pro day. You didn't interview him at the combine. You never had him in the building, and you drafted him anyway. Like, oh my God. And look, it is embarrassing that there was a study done that you paid a whole lot of money for that told you to take Teddy Bridgewater and you ignored it. And it's embarrassing that a homeless man may or may not have been involved. But like, my God, Justin Gilbert. Oh.
Remember, Manziel walks up on the stage and he's going like this.
And he's doing the stupid, let's wreck this league. Oh my God. Poor Brian Hoyer. Oh,
I thought this was a good idea. Johnny Football, yay!
Oh, everybody was over the moon, man. Everybody was over the moon.
Snickers commercial.
People crying. It's like, give me a break.
Oh my God. Poor Brian Hoyer. I still think they would have made the playoffs if they just stuck with Hoyer and not put Josh Gordon back in there in 07. Or not 07. What was that? 2010, 11, somewhere in that area. I still think they would have made the playoffs.
Yeah.
What that does more than anything is it tells you how freaking good Kyle Shanahan is at his job. I think that's what that really tells you. It's like until they started texting the sidelines, which again, oh my God, how did nobody stop that? Until they started texting the sidelines, they were about to be a playoff team. They were on the verge. They were like 6-3 or something like that. And then they brought Josh Gordon back and tried to feed him every single pass, and then they brought Johnny in, and it just all went into the toilet.
7 games in a row we lost here. I think we started out 7-4, we're in first place, and then we just lost the rest. 7-9 we ended up winning, or ended up being. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Fucking close.
That one is still the one that makes me shake my head. Poor Brian Hoyer.
Now, did you at the studio when they are open? You guys, what radio stations are? It's 92.3, obviously, and then is it 98.5, and then 102.1.
Yep, and then 104.
Okay. Now, did you obviously Michael Stanley just passed away? Did you run into the hall a lot? He was back in the old days.
Yes.
Okay.
Michael was awesome. Michael was one of those people who you would never in your life meet him and go, that guy's a rock star. He was just a regular run-of-the-mill guy. We would have meetings with the Poobah, and he would come in at the same time the meetings were, and he would proceed to duck his head into the meeting and just interrupt the whole thing. And he would go, at noon, Baskin, you said this about the Tribe bullpen, and here are the 5 reasons why you're wrong. And he would just get into fights with you, and he would just debug everything. And he was such a sports junkie on top of just being Michael Stanley. He was such a good dude. He was so hysterical on top of it. He had such a quick wit to him on top of it, and he cared. He would come in, and he would give me crap. And he would walk in and he would go, you are way too young to be playing Traffic. Why are you playing Traffic's Glad? Like as bumper music. And he would go, by the way, phenomenal song. I'm glad you played it, but why in the hell do you even know that? Like that was Michael. And he was such a good dude on top of it. The first time I met Michael Stanley, and I put the story on Twitter. The first time I met Michael Stanley, I was training with Dave Spano, who's the board op for Bull and Fox. And he goes, come on. It was during a segment that was already recorded. We had 20 minutes to just go do whatever we wanted. And he goes, come on, I want to introduce you to Michael. And so we walked next door, and there's Michael Stanley. And Spano walks in. Michael, how are you? I'm training this kid. This is Dan Menningen. Hey, Michael, nice to meet you. How you been? All that kind of stuff. And we're just shooting the breeze about life in the world around it. And we're just talking. And he goes, oh, shit. And we go, what? And he goes, I've waited all day to hear this song. And you two idiots are in here shooting the breeze the whole time. And I can't sit here and listen to it. He goes, I had to sit through Pink Floyd and the Allman Brothers and the Doobie Brothers and all this crap that I've heard 8,000 times to hear one freaking song. And you idiots are in this room ruining it for me. And that's Michael. Like he was just, he rocked, man. I am going to miss that dude. I'm going to miss talking to him about sports. I mean, he would come in after like my Saturday show. He would come in on Monday and he'd go, I really like what you said about X, Y, and Z, and you're wrong about the Browns wide receiver position. Like that was Michael.
Nice.
He rocked.
Now, once you did, they did everything shut down last year, and you guys had to start working at home like everybody did, who was office jobs or broadcast and stuff like that. Was it fun at first? Did you like it, or how did you feel about it?
So the best part of them not being in the studio is the fact that I get the TV remote and I can watch whatever I want. That's the best part about them not being there. It's going to suck when they're back in the studio and we have to watch the crap that they want to watch. And by that, I mean, so it was weird because you are so used to seeing these people every single day of your life, and then all of a sudden they're gone. Like they're just into the abyss. Like you're talking to them on the phone, and that's about the end of it. And it's still odd, man. Like I've gotten used to it. I want them back in studio because it's so much easier to use hand signals and that kind of stuff to get them to do what you want to do instead of getting in their ears and talking to them. Now, I'm lucky I work with 2 TV guys. They are used to having voices in their head telling them, get the break, do this, get this done, where they can have a conversation while someone is still talking to them. Where, like, if you did that to me, I would have to pause and pay attention.
Right.
So I'm lucky in that regard, but it's still weird. And I wish they were back in studio, and I miss talking to them in studio every day. And I miss dealing with, I miss Jeff Thomas. I miss talking to that guy in between breaks. And I mean, he's got such a twisted sense of humor. And I miss make Jeff Thomas do it because that just made me laugh every single day.
Yeah,
and the way he would torment Phelps just made my day even better. And the way he would yell at Baskin was great too. Like it just, I miss having that guy in studio. I miss having Jonathan Peterlin in studio to talk about how crappy we are at golf. Like I miss all of those different things. Though JP is getting better. He's getting a lot better, and he's better than I am. But still, I still whine about how bad I am. But
now, have you ever besides producing, and have you ever done announcing? Have you ever been the main guy on the mic? Like, have you ever ran the? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. During football season, I do Friday. So it's a giant bummer because the third chair of our show was always Les Levine. And I love Les. Les was a mentor. Les was a friend. I would shoot ideas off of Les. I would call Les. Like, it was so cool that I had this legend who just was like, yeah, let me help you. Les went to my boss and went to the poobah and said, you need to give him more airtime. He's got some thoughts. He's got interesting thoughts. This guy knows radio. You need to trust him. Like and to get that from a guy who is a legend, absolute legend, meant the world to me. And he was always the third chair. And Alex Hooper put it better than anybody when he said, one of the guys would be off and Les would be in, and we'd actually be psyched because we got to talk to Les and hang out with Les all day. I still miss my friend. And with him being gone, I've had to do more of the third chair stuff. And I miss, it's a great opportunity and I love it, but I miss my friend. I would rather have my friend than all of those things. So I've been doing more and more of it. I step in when one of the guys are off, and it works out nicely. We kind of, we complement each other. I don't know how it worked out this way. I don't know why it worked out this way, but there's chemistry and it somehow works. So I do solo shows every so often. I haven't done them since the pandemic, since we cut back on all of our weekend programming. So probably in the future, as it goes on, I'll go back to doing shows.
Okay. Now, do you see? I mean, is that kind of frustrating? How people like Les and everybody, they just stick around because sportscasting is fun for a lot of people. They just stay around forever. Is it just kind of a wait your turn thing, and you think eventually it'll slide into one of Baskin Phelps slots, or you just kind of are you willing to move for the job, or you gonna stay in Cleveland? How's that outlook for it?
I love it in Cleveland. I really do. This place, it's awesome. I love the fans. I love, I've got family here. I've got friends here. All that kind of stuff. I'm happy. If the right opportunity came, would I move? Sure. The right amount of money, the right amount of this, the right amount of that. Yeah, absolutely. I'd prefer not to. I don't know. I don't look at it as I'm going to slide in that spot in the slightest. No, not at all. And they should stick around. They're really good at what they do. And people
really, it's a fun show, man. It really is.
They're great at what they do. And I love where I am right now. Is it where I want to be? No. Or I would rather be the host of my own show where I could do kind of whatever I want. But I'm really happy right now. I couldn't be happier where I am right now. So we'll see.
Now, me and you have talked on Twitter about the Family Guy. Jefferson High is our rivals. It's one of my favorite.
They're our rivals.
No. Every time I hear that, I just fucking roll.
It's so stupid.
I know, just and freeze. That Joker from Jefferson High. They're our rivals.
They're our rivals. Hey,
No,
he's sitting on a chair casually like we do. It's so good.
Now, obviously you gotta love Family Guy, right? Is that one of your more favorite pop culture shows? I mean, what's more like out of Family Guy, South Park, and The Simpsons? What would you say is your favorite out of those three?
Simpsons is one because I grew up on it. I have the first 15 seasons of The Simpsons on DVD. It was one of my go-tos when I was writing. It is still one of my go-tos to this day when I'm writing. After that, it starts kind of falling off a little bit. I would then probably throw because all of these shows, like Family Guy, the first like 7 seasons of Family Guy are really good, and then it gets shaky. I've heard it's gotten back to being really good again. I haven't gone back and watched of late, but like it kind of, you lose your way a little bit. You get too far off, and at least to me with some of that stuff. So South Park is one of those where they go off the deep end, but they're so good at being able to just hit the reset button that it works. Like they're one of those shows that stole the Family Guy or the not Family Guy, the Seinfeld thing, where at the end of every episode we just hit the button and it's restarted. And South Park is really good at that. Now they've kind of gotten into, okay, we're going to do this season-long arc. And those have been pretty funny, and they've done a great job with them. I mean, the vaccination special was really good.
I gotta watch it.
I haven't seen that one.
I gotta check
the vaccination special is a good time. I thought the pandemic special was just okay. The vaccination one is really funny.
Okay.
Now, out of the Family Guy sketches, the bird is the word, or the where's my money, man? Which is your favorite out of those two? Where's my money, man? You remember that one?
Getting real tired of you ducking me, man. Where's my money?
Not birds. That bird is word, but I can't. When he starts going, he's like, seems to be something's lacking here. There's it's about a certain ornithological thing that's not been mentioned. Then he just goes, and then when he's on the ground doing blah 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 blah.
Wow. Yeah.
I laugh till I shit myself every single time I see that fucking sketch. It's still that funny. 11 years later, it's so fucking epic, man.
It is. That whole thing was so good. Oh my god. I mean, they're both brilliant sketches. They are. The reason that for me, I will always pick "Where's My Money" is because we used to do that at the bike shop I worked at, and that was always like and so there's that that memory that comes back with it. Where's my money? Where's my money, man? Like anytime you would go get a sandwich for somebody, it was always, where's my money? I'm getting real tired of you ducking me, man. I'm getting real tired. And you'd grab the hammer that was in the back and you'd beat it on your hand. Getting real tired of you ducking me, man. Where's my money? Where's my money? You got money for fake mustaches? Like we would just quote that constantly. And so that one will forever sit near and dear. And I mean that there are just certain things, there are certain, they just bring back that memory for you. So, and while bird is the word is hysterical and I will fall over laughing at that, I don't have a memory attached to it.
The best part about Where's My Money is at the end where he pushes him in front of the bus. It's so fucking classic. God, that's great. Now, on your Twitter pictures, the baby Yoda, do you like I'm assuming you're a big Star Wars fan, Mandalorian fan, all that?
I am a Star Wars nerd. Yes, I'm a nerd in general. I'm a Star Wars nerd. I'm a Star Trek nerd. I'm a Game of Thrones nerd.
Nice.
I am Marvel, all superheroes, all of that kind of stuff. I am a nerd.
Nice.
Now he looks. Tell me, you're a Game of Thrones fan. Who does our boy Pat look like here? What out of the Game of Thrones?
Let me duck down. Let me duck down. That's a hint. That's a hint, by the way.
It's what I do. I drink.
I know.
Just like Peter Dinklage, our boy Pat here. Now, this is a controversial question, but this is just me talking here. When did you stop watching the Star Wars out of the main series? I quit after episode 8 because the way they treated Mark Hamill was kind of just bullshit to me. I didn't really care what even happened in 9.
I have seen every last one of them. I have rewatched every last one of them. I will continue to. 4, 5, and 6 will forever be my favorite because that's the one I grew up on, and that's the one that means the most to me. Yes. Look, 9 was a disaster. 9 was, there were so many things that were wrong with that movie, but yet it's still Star Wars. And so I still enjoyed it while I was in the theater, because as long as you give me lightsabers and the Force, I'm like, cool, we're in. This is great. So I'm very easily impressed on that one. I liked 8. And I liked 7. And I know how they did it with Mark Hamill was probably not the best. I wanted to see where Rian Johnson went with it. And I wish they would have gave him the keys to 8 to see how he would finish it. Because 8 was just so thrown together, and it was like, oh crap, we need a villain. Let's go get Lord Palpatine again. Like, oh, he's alive. And you're like, no, he's not alive. He got thrown down the Death Star. What the hell's going on here? Like, it just seems so half-baked and half-assed, and you really just dream that they could have done better. And I wish they would have gave the keys to Rian Johnson, just been like, okay, buddy, finish your thoughts. Finish how you want this to look. Because it was, and I know this stuff is real in the weeds. Yes, they did Mark Hamill wrong. I thought it was a cool way to bring him in. I thought it was awesome. But that was a beautiful movie. Like, just the way it was shot, the colors, all of that kind of stuff, absolutely gorgeous. And I would have loved to have seen how he would have solved it, and not the way that this hodgepodge shoehorn horse crap thing that we sat through ended up being. I just, it still drives me nuts. And I almost want somebody to. It's the same problem I have with Game of Thrones. I feel like they just got stuck, and they just wanted to rush it toward the end and figure out what to do with it. And I think the same thing happened with Star Wars. They're like, well, we don't know what to do with this. Let's get Lord Palpatine. Oh, they're in love. Yay, Rey and Ben Solo, and I can't think of his name. Kylo Ren. That's it. Yeah, they made out. It's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. That's useless. What are we doing here? Like, you could have sold it better if she was giving him CPR. So, like, there were so many issues, and the Game of Thrones finale, you could tell Benioff and Weiss just wanted to be done. They just, because they signed their giant Star Wars contract money, and they wanted to go cash that in.
That's right.
And they just wanted to be done. And I would love nothing more than if somebody else, like, I want George to finish the books, because then we could find out what George really believes this could have went and where it should have gone, instead of Benioff and Weiss's thoughts of how it should end.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish they would have just stretched it out and pieced everything together, instead of all of a sudden making it like, hey, we're just gonna warp across Westeros now. Like, we're just gonna have Scotty beam us all over the place, and we'll figure the rest out from there. So I don't know. There were issues with both, but 8 still had lightsabers in it, and I just like lightsabers.
Before we bounce out of here, rank the original trilogy. Rank them 1 to 3. The 4, 5, and 6. Rank them your favorite to least favorite.
5, 4, 6.
I think that's how I would do it too. Probably Jedi was so good. Jedi was so good. It was just so dark, man. I just love the darkness of it.
Like the Ewoks are cute.
They're adorable.
You just want
little teddy bears. I will say this though. I have the original VHS cassettes of it. I will hang on to them to the end of time, until one day I can walk up to a Disney executive and I can hand them my VHS cassettes, and I can go, please take these, digitize them, and release them. Give me my Star Wars movies the way I grew up seeing them. I don't need the monster music video in the middle of Return of the Jedi.
Right.
I just don't need that. I don't need Alien Janet Jackson. Appreciate it. Thanks for the thoughts. Doesn't need to be there. I don't need Jabba the Hutt in A New Hope. I just don't.
Talking to Han Solo, the CGI just takes you out of it.
It just does. It just bogs it all down, and it's like, man, this worked so beautifully. And then George just kept messing with it and messing with it and messing with it and messing with it. Now we've got a bunch of 3-hour movies.
They have squeezed that turn up so dry. I mean, my gosh, I mean, I remember when I was little, I was like, okay, you know, it was 80. I think Jedi came out in like 83, 84, something like that.
No, 83 was Jedi.
Yeah, I'm thinking, okay, cool. You know, around 1990, we're gonna get it because I knew there was nine chapters in the story. You're thinking, okay, they're gonna release, and then they finally come out with it, but it was like 1999, and then it was okay. It was some parts of it were serviceable, and then it just, you know, part 2 was okay, and then part 3 was whatever, and then once Disney got a hold of it, and Lucas. He just, jeez, man.
Part 2. I still can't watch part 2. Attack of the Clones is just useless. I can't do 2 hours. There's like an hour of stuff with the actual clones that is really enjoyable. And then you got to deal with an hour of Anakin Skywalker just whining in paradise. Like, here I am in a beautiful beach house and on a planet. And everything sucks.
Life is so bad for poor Anakin.
Exactly. And I'm like, and I got Natalie Portman next to me, and this is horrible. Ooh. And it's like, oh God, don't make me sit through this.
That's
Come
awesome.
on, give me more Boba Fett. Give me more Django Fett.
Why did they have to Boba Fett and Django especially, and another person they got rid of made no sense to me is the coolest character in there might be Darth Maul. And he's only there for like 10 minutes, and then just boom, he's dead. You know, they could have stretched that shit out a lot longer, in my opinion, man.
Darth Maul was really cool. I wish they would have done more with Darth Maul. And look, I know some nerds will get mad at me because I haven't read the books or any of that kind of stuff. But like, Darth Maul was really cool. They should have done more. It should have been you should have taken the amount you had Jar Jar in there, and that should have been Darth Maul. You should have put Maul and Jar Jar, and you would have been better off.
Jar Jar is what happens when the marketing team tells you what to do for Star Wars.
Oh shit! If anything, just give me the porgs then. Like, at least they're adorable. Like,
outstanding. All right, Mr. Dan Menningen, you got anything to promote? Any books or anything you're doing on the side besides the radio show?
No, man. Baskin and Phelps 10 to 2, Monday through Friday. Yeah, that's the best that I can promote. I occasionally write a column on 92 Through the Fan. I would like it to be weekly, but there are some weeks I'm just lazy. And that's it, man. I don't have a whole lot. I'm a simple man with simple pleasures. Go watch The Simpsons. It's good for you.
I love it, man. Well, thanks for joining us. You can hit him up on Twitter at The Sports Feller, and join us next week. We're going to have Garrett Bush live, just like how we did Dan Menningen.
Oh, you're going to have my buddy. Oh, Bush is the man.
Hell yeah.
Bush is the absolute man. You will have a blast with him.
That's awesome.
One of the friendliest people you will ever meet, even though he could snap me in half. He rocks, man. You will have a blast with G. Bush.
Good deal. Appreciate it, my friend. Thanks.
Because you'll see him before I do, sadly, with this damn pandemic.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll give him a holler and tell me say hey, for sure.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks everybody for joining us. Like I said, take us home, Pat.
Remember, every Friday from 9:30 to 11, we invite you on the STD podcast to get infected.
All right, guys. We'll see you next week.